Okay, we're gonna start the meeting, so the roll call, we have three missing tonight. We have approval of minutes.
No, we can't approve the minutes because they're not done yet.
Okay,
So-
that saves that step. We have one plan to sign or none?
No plans to
No
sign
plans to
tonight?
sign. So now we have the public hearing amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Lynn, section 12.1.
Yes. And I gave you, Mike prepared a memo, and there's only, it was highlighted. I don't know if it came out on...
It did.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, because it was highlighted yellow, but anyway, that's the only change.
Okay.
Would anybody like that ordinance, the amending of the zoning ordinance of the city of Lynn, section 12.1 reg? We do have it up here if anybody would like to see it. It's available in planning. Hearing none, I'm going to forego the reading of that, and I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor? Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Lynn, section 12-1? Hearing none, I close it in favor. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I close the public hearing in opposition, and I close the public hearing. We do have correspondence from Mike. I don't know if there's any questions from the board.
I think we should explain to the audience a little bit what the change is on section 12.1.
Good.
Okay? I can do that, or
Yep.
you want to do it? Okay. From what I'm reading is that there had been a list of items that the city council was required to give permission on in terms of section 12.1. And what's being added is that the council would have to give approval for any package stores and businesses with an all alcohol or beer and wine license. It appears for me from Mike's recommendation that that had formerly been only from the licensing commission, but now it requires city council approval.
Which I think the council should have an input.
Which would give the ward councilor an opportunity to have input in the neighborhood prior to that vote being made. So it wasn't just the licensing commission anymore. It was believed that this would assist in maintaining the neighborhood character in accordance with the neighbors' wishes. So Mike, after he explained this, says that after review of the proposed ordinance change, he respectfully requests that the planning board approve the changes as written. So that is the essence of what they're asking us to make a change to the zoning.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I have a quick question. Will the licensing commission still have to?
They would have to
it?
approve the license, the council would then approve the location.
Okay.
It's just an extra step.
That's what I-
But it also protects the city and protects the residents in that area, so they have a greater say, because the ward councils usually really fight for the awards, and so does the at-large, but the ward councils really do care about the awards. I know Wayne Losey, Diane Jacutis, they all fight like crazy for the awards.
So-
Wayne, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just briefly, for example, you mentioned my name, Shopwood, they got an all-package license, and people started to inquire with me. It's like, wow, they don't have an all-package license, and then when I looked into it, lo and behold, they did. And it was like no input from anybody.
So would it also prevent, not that the licensing commission would ever do it, but putting everything in one ward and not in another, like having all liquor licenses?
If this didn't pass,
That's what I mean.
it
That's what I
potentially
mean.
could.
In theory,
It
not that
could.
he ever would.
That's correct, because my understanding was it wasn't a new license. It was something that they purchased from an existing, and that was how they were able to do it without a special permit before the city
So
council.
you'd be in favor of this change?
I believe the entire city council is in favor of it.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was amazed when I walked in there and all of a sudden, the
Yeah.
liquor bottles everywhere. I mean, they had their one, but
Yeah, just
it was right out there all
no
over.
input from the public at all. Boom.
What is the wish of the board?
I'll make a motion to amend section 12.1
And I'll second it.
as read.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Just one question. The approval is given the recommendation as it's written out here.
Yes.
Change as it's written. Okay.
Correct.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Motion made and passed.
Yep.
You sign my waiver letter. Pens, if I get approved.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll continue on the public hearing that was closed at the last meeting for Kelly Lane Extension.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record of David Salamini, I'm the petitioner, and with me is Chuck Fayette, who's the surveyor on the project. We were before you at your last meeting, and in between there, we've had multiple meetings with the Conservation Commission. At the direction of the DEP comments, we've made two minor adjustments to the plan. One is
Oh, you guys printed them already,
Yes.
but, sure. Did you print it, or you did?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's the same thing.
same thing, yep.
so one issue was
I
the
think you have it.
outfall of the retention area, and it's requested by DEP that it be 50 feet back from the wetland area, and we've made that adjustment to the plan. One other item that the Conservation Commission asked us to include as part of our approval would be clay copper dams on the utilities that are coming up the street, so the drainage doesn't get any fresh stone around the, let's say around the sewer pipe and follow it all the way down Kelly Lane. So on those two items, so there'll be a rock swale bringing the outlet back here rather than 50 feet closer to the wetlands here. So that minor adjustment. And as the utilities come up the street,
There's going to be three property damage right through this position, right in this line here.
and so that the water that's in the underneath the street, it doesn't just follow the utility pipes down Kelly. We've also provided a response from our engineer to the questions raised by one of your members, and that's been submitted to you. So we're here to answer any questions that you might have, and
Okay, thank you. The public hearing is closed, but Council, if you would like to make any comments, we'd be glad to hear them.
Well, I haven't been really following this, to be honest. I've been aware that it's been before this board. I haven't had the benefit of reviewing or looking at the plan as of yet. I have heard from one of the neighbors in the past. I spoke with him. Our concern would be the road leading up to there, and which I have spoken with Mr. Salamini about, and we look forward to seeing that paved and put to bed. And one thing I gave Mr. Salamini to is I'm not looking forward to the headache of the complaints of potential blasting and disruption and quality of life. It's
I believe a lot of the blasting has been done previous to now. There would be probably some foundations, some minor things. So most of the blasting, Mr. Solomon, am I speaking correct? or-
most of the blasting has been completed with regard to the roadway and utilities. Some blasting, from a cost standpoint, we'd like to keep it to a minimum as well. Some blasting will be required on the lots.
Good, that's good to hear. And then just, overall, hopefully it has the least amount of impact on the existing neighborhood. And how the board sees fit. I mean, again, I haven't looked at it, I haven't reviewed it, I haven't been asked to, and so I trust in the wisdom of the board and how you determine the outcome.
Thank you very much, Counselor. You're always in everything.
One of our members made several questions, which was sent to the engineers in regard to this, and a lot of that information was then forwarded, as I understand it, to the Conservation Commission and to Mass DEP. Is that
Yes.
correct? There were a couple of issues that came up earlier that I just want to ask about, to be sure I understand it right. So, in terms of the area, the original wetlands that have been filled in, so as I read this, my understanding that's going to be moved. That's going to remain filled in, but they're going to replace it with another area, which is even larger.
Yeah, a couple of things. What we're gonna do is, when we originally did the subdivision back, we had a peer review and everything. It was, the environmentalists who handled us for it, put out about 14-step thing how to do it. We're gonna come in, start excavating, finding where the original wetland was, removing it slow, having a botanist on site so we can determine where it is and such. And then, as we do that, they'll remove the wetlands that is under that stockpile so we can use it in our new wetlands, okay? We're really gonna not,
We have a general idea of where it is, and it's in the general
Is it in the
location.
blue area that matches the shore, or it's a little bit to the,
It's in this area here. We're not sure.
The one that was filled in, the original one.
The original wetland that was filled in about 30 years
it's
ago.
right here,
Okay.
Okay, so part of it will be where the retention area is. Because we're replicating on a 2-to-1 basis, part of the original wetlands will be incorporated in that, plus additional land.
Yeah, from the answer to the comment,
In a little bit of shifting.
it appears that, at one time, the original wetlands was 2,400 square
correct.
feet, plus or minus.
right.
And now would be 5141, plus or minus.
That's correct.
So that you're providing more
Yeah.
area
Yeah,
Yes.
for the water.
yes.
And the reason I asked that is because one of the people here who was concerned owns part of the lot next door and was concerned about water seeping in. So that's also why you changed where the outflow goes, is that also?
No, that was just to address the DEP concern, okay?
but that would also need more attention.
Yes.
The abutting land is actually uphill from us,
Oh, okay.
so
I can show you.
So that's
this
not,
water doesn't,
that's not gonna end up going in.
no, and actually, the engineers presented to the Conservation Commission because that was a concern and a question, whether we were draining onto that land, and the answer to that is no.
Okay.
The water's actually.
But this would actually be more attention on the
Be
bottom.
more more retained area. And as I said, after this wetland area, the grade goes up.
Okay. But you also literally double the amount of attention.
Yes.
Does it go up on both?
Yes, it goes
Sides
up,
of the
goes up
lot
all
line
the way
here.
here. This is the butters down here, goes up all the way around. He is higher than the abutting wetland, so there's no way that any water, this water is gonna come around and get into it. I had pictures I could have brought them, but it's 8-10 feet higher than the wetlands down here.
Thank you.
Okay. I also noted that there had been some concern about the efficacy of that storm scepter system, but the engineer put in a letter from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, which kind of praised that system, as being
It's a much better system.
than what had been in the past.
Yeah, and each unit's about $10,000, believe it or not, for, you know, and it's pricey, but it does a job. It really takes takes away the old 4 bays we used to have and settlement bays,
Yeah.
you know, the large areas for open areas and stuff.
Yeah, the open drainage areas, the open retention area has always become a mess.
Yeah, they don't maintain.
You know,
With trash and debris and,
Has there been any information that has come to anybody on failure of these systems?
none that I'm aware of.
Because there was talk about how a couple of them were high on an elevation, and if it failed, the water would come down.
you know,
That's all.
You know,
You have no information about any
You know, I
failures?
mean,
that you've ever heard?
the reality of it is they're designed to take water that's relatively clean when it gets there.
Yeah.
And the way that they fail would be as if a lot of silt built up in them,
And they were never clean.
and they were never cleaned. So that there's two things that are cleaned on a regular basis. The storm drains on the edge of the road are cleaned on a regular basis by Lynn Water and Sewer. And then the storm septic units, those also, less need to be cleaned. But basically, any silt that's in the road that gets washed in, collects in both those locations, so that it doesn't go into the, bleaching area of the retention area. At some point, decades into the future, there may be some maintenance that, needed. And at that time, the folks that, if it worked out, the people around
But
it.
they're not known for catastrophic failure.
No.
So that's really what I was trying to find out.
That's it.
I have a few more slides.
No, that's what we're here for.
I need notes, so I just got to find my notes.
Take your time. You're my last meeting tonight. Well, you're thinking to your notes, do you mind? I think the board council has to leave. He has another comment to make.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
Chairman.
Mosey?
And if you don't mind, through the chair, I just wanted to ask Mr. Saladin, I know the council took action, we enabled you to move forward with the taking, the eminent domain taking. And one of those reasons were that you were going to pave Kelly Lane, and we listed it as a hazard. I just wanted to check with you, when will that paving, grind and pave be done for that portion of
You
Kelly?
wouldn't want to do that till the end of the development,
Well, actually,
because trucks are gonna be going over it, DPW and Mike
it's
Dunn.
in bad shape, and it...
Well, actually, this is something I shouldn't answer here.
Well,
Ordinarily, that is the case, but we'd like to see it...
The problem is, Councilman Doe, if you do it soon, you might want to talk to Mike Donovan. If they do it now, your road is going to get eaten up by the equipment going up there. They're not going to have a perfect road afterwards. You're better off, every development, they wait till the end, because if you talk to the DPW commissioner and
I
probably
know it's a
ISC,
separate road, Mrs. Stillian, I just want to point out that we did take that...
but that's going to be the access road, correct?
But that's the same as Betty Terrace. I mean, Betty Terrace isn't getting paid by Mr. Solomon. It's not part of the subdivision. I agree with you, this here subdivision here needs to be paved at the end, but this area here, is it right here, Chuck?
From here down.
They're down.
Well, let me put it to you this way. My neighbor, who's appealed this quite a bit, and I think he's concerned about the street being done, if Mr. DeBali chooses not to appeal any approvals that take place, I'll pave that road right away.
Well, what I was just saying, we grind it and put a new binder down.
It's a condition.
What do you think?
So you don't want to put money out if you're going to be appealing.
Let's grind it and put a new binder down. And then when we bind our road, we'll have a new binder. That's good for
I lived next to a subdivision that was done years ago. They put down the binder coat. They waited probably 5 years before they put down the final coat. Because there was settlement with that binder coat, there were problems, trucks rolling over.
Absolutely would be be a great
be
compromise, because right now, the conditions are somewhat hazardous. If you go there, there's broken pavement, and it's really in bad condition. And when I get calls, and I have over the last 5, 6, 8 years, from the residents, Andy Hall, or whoever the DPW commissioner was, would say, look, they're gonna, 2 reasons. One, it wasn't the city, it was still under that. And then when we did take it over, the condition was that Mr. Salamini would pave it, but we never really got the timeline straight. And, you know, he's been good enough that when I called him, he patched it, but it just keeps getting torn up, and when they swept it, they took away a lot of pavement.
Again, just clarifying Mr. Salty's thing, but I will just, the road that my house is on is the road that butts the new subdivision. It is all torn up still because all the construction vehicles going up and down it.
Yeah.
If they paved it back at the beginning of the construction, I would have the same potholes and mess we have now. But Mr. Solomon, just clarifying, you're saying that you're willing to do it, but you don't want to extend any money if it's going to be held up for appeals.
I mean, you know, as my agreement and my intent was always that work would be done in conjunction with the construction here. It just makes sense.
And the reason
We mobilized.
The reason you're saying you want to wait for the appeals because you don't want to extend your money for a great period.
What about doing the binder? Would you be willing to do a binder?
Again, it's you know, to be in court and expending money on engineers in court.
So if it's appeals, you don't want to do the buying because you don't want to spend some money.
If it's appeals, once the appeals are exhausted, you know, then I'll do the construction.
Yep.
And that's, you know, that's been my intent right along, that work would be done when we mobilize to do work there.
In the meantime, could you once again get some potholes patched?
I'm happy to patch the street, I mean, you know, but unfortunately with the winter, you know, a lot of what we patched was money thrown away. You know, it didn't last the whole winter.
Right. But so could we?
So at this point, they're actually paving, fixing potholes on a public street? They're actually a pretty good guy though. I got some potholes on my street.
I did it once, I'd say, you know, I plow, so I know what it's like to hit manhole covers that are sticking up when you're plowing. So, you know.
I got to ask the developers on my street that did the subdivision if they'll patch those holes.
Yeah.
They drive me crazy when I go home.
But it's, you know, it's like anything else, it sounds simple, but it's raising, lowering every structure on the street.
Oh, I know.
It's matching people's driveways and so forth. You know, the street was poorly constructed, so it needs to be ground down and rebuilt.
When the binder coat goes down, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the binder coat goes down, the manholes and everything are raised at that time.
But-
And it's gonna stay raised until the final coat's been on. Because I was living under that circumstance on my side.
So the binder won't be
So
used.
just to equate to the subdivision that's next to your home, that, I don't know how many lots are there, I built 3 of the houses in that subdivision, buying 3 lots from the DeMarcuses. But that subdivision.
I think that's
has taken-
16 houses. That's taking years to do.
So a 16-lot project for me, and my history with the board attests to this, is a 1-year project. So if we were approved and there were no appeals, we could basically start this project, do all the site work into next spring, and build houses next summer and fall, and be done, you know, a year and a half from now.
But you are willing,
You would do that section before, if not appeal, down here.
Well, that's what I'm declaring tonight. If Mr. Gamali wants to see a new street in front of him, I'll put it in now, you know, if they don't appeal. But I expect them to appeal.
Fair.
So
I hope
we'll see what
there's
happens.
peace in the valley, and I do have to go to a meeting. I appreciate the board's patience, and Mr. Solomon, thank you for responding to these questions. And before I go, if I could just have a word with you. All right, thank you.
Council, can I have you 1 quick second?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm gonna talk to you about those 2 tomorrow.
Oh,
I just want to make sure in favor. We'll talk.
No, and yes.
Okay, we'll
Yeah,
talk.
it is fine.
Make sure that is no
Yeah.
and yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, I'm sorry we interrupted you.
All right, I wanted to address the letter we have from Mike regarding this.
Yes.
Okay? Because basically what he's saying to us is that, you know, we're in receipt of the subdivision plan. There have been a number of questions that have been asked, very technical in many cases, that have been sent to the engineers or to water and sewer. And he feels that all of those have been answered, except there needs to be 2 waivers.
Correct.
So let's talk about the waivers, because I think we would have to vote on those, correct?
Individually, one at a time.
So,
The length of the dead end, which we did vote the first time that the subdivision went in, it's been a commonplace thing that we've always voted the length of the roadways. The subdivision is actually next to this one coming off. That one was actually, the extension of the road went that way, we actually voted that through. There's quite a few of those that we've done.
so he's recommending, as I read this, that the board approve that waiver.
Correct.
For 2 reasons. One is that we've granted similar waivers in the past to residential subdivisions to accommodate the development sites located off a dead-end street. And then the other is that the location of the site precludes access from any abutting properties.
Correct.
Okay. So do we, at this point, is it appropriate to make a motion on that?
That,
waiver?
somebody wanted to make a motion on that waiver, we will vote on that waiver.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Seconded. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? What is the wish of the board? A roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, you're taking input from the butters and members of the public.
The public hearing, they did that at the public hearing at the last time.
Okay, I'm just asking that question. So is the answer to my question, no, you're not taking
The abutters all put
the
their,
butters and the public?
the abutters put their information in at the public hearing.
That the abutters questions at the public hearing was
Are all
submitted to the, whether it be to the engineer or to water and sewer or conservation, and the responses are in the packet that you were given. And summing that up right now, I'm addressing a letter from Mike Donovan, which indicates that those questions have been answered and he feels have been answered legitimately. And so we're now down to 2 specific things,
Correct.
2 specific waivers.
Yeah, the public hearing was closed at the last meeting.
Okay, so notwithstanding the fact that you've taken more information tonight, I'm just looking for an answer. Will there be an opportunity for public comment? It sounds like there won't. Is that?
The public hearing is ended. The information we're actually going over tonight is all information that was asked that night, and we're just answering it. So this is summarizing what was asked by the board members and by the people who had things at the, that would have been time, everybody actually in the room, I believe that day, that had anything they wanted to comment, did speak at the public hearing, and the public hearing was closed.
And I did speak that night. You're right on that. The letter from Mike Donovan, is that part of the record of tonight's hearing? Is there a copy
Yes, it is.
available to me?
It's in the package you just been given.
No, it's not in that packet.
Oh, it's not? Sorry. Thought it was.
I can,
All right, sir, we have our motion, Dave, could you call me the question, please?
yes.
Do you want to do this?
Is that, oh, okay. Mr. Angeli?
Yes.
Mr. Upton?
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon?
Yes.
All in favor?
All in favor? Mike's letter is that's answering the questions from,
Correct, this is, I'll give you this. and
Yeah.
just file it for us.
I
you're
have,
gonna need it for now, Steve.
I have an extra copy, so you can keep it if you want. Let me just find it.
The next one would be the maximum slope of the roadway.
Which again is past practice.
Yeah. This development was approved, the reason it's back to us is because the attorney that actually did the original first one of Verona did not give the easement and roadway to the city, so.
But the waiver, Mike is saying that the waiver on the slope, percentage on the slope, he recommends that waiver request be approved.
Yes.
Because A, we granted similar
Past projects.
grade requests for other developments to accommodate the development of hilly sites and the lessening of the impact of said development. I don't know what the percentage is on my street, but I can guarantee but the other things, it says that,
Well, actually, do it.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Still open. It's
Chuck, I have a question.
Yeah, still open.
So the waivers for, it says 150 feet will be above the
Well, it's,
maximum slope of 10.5.
actually,
I couldn't quite read it on your cutaway here.
you gotta look at the profile.
It's a little too small.
maximum slope of 12%.
If anybody who's behind the thing wants to move to it, see it, say it, they can see it.
Don't forget how long the road is.
You don't want to see your work. I couldn't see where it was.
Gotta be that section about 2/3 of the,
There's,
If you want to see
from
it.
here to here,
Yeah.
that's at 12%. Actually, the profile of the road is the exact profile that we had 20 years ago. Down at the existing county lane down here, it's about 10.5 and 11%. Then it flattened out because it was in the cul-de-sac. We picked it up and transitioned it and put a couple of vertical curves, so we have like, I think 6.6% here. And then we go into a vertical curve and then a 12%, and then it flattens out up to the
that
top.
top.
Okay, so,
Okay.
but it's the exact same profile that we didn't change it much of anything except for drainage.
And the alternative to bring the grade down would be to blast this whole area down.
Well, it should be disruptive to the whole neighborhood.
But he's also saying that he wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
No, it would be disruptive to the
Because
neighborhood.
of the, it would result not only in destruction of the neighborhood, but a roadway that would be so much lower
Then the terrain.
than
It would be a canyon.
it would. That's what it sounded like. Matter of fact, would that mean that everybody's driveways would be like
High grade.
high grade up
It
there?
would affect everybody's driveway and house locations, that's correct.
So I guess my question is, the 1,911 feet, only 150 feet will be above that?
No, a little more, but we got the 12% for 150 feet, but it does transition from like 6, probably to 7 or 8.
But it is only 150 feet.
It really is what the waiver is asking, it's really just that
That's-
approximate 150 feet. Okay.
Correct.
I have no more questions on the way, on that particular way.
I'll make a motion
That's
to
second.
approve that waiver.
To approve it, and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Angeli?
Yes.
Mr. Upton? Mr. Stein?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the waivers are actually out of the way, so what we're looking at now is the whole subdivision.
I understand it, but can I finish?
Yep, so now, just letting everybody know, we're looking at the whole subdivision.
Because not everybody knows what we've been given.
Given, yep.
Just trying to say it out loud. So, again, Mr. Donovan has put in a section that said, you know, that the questions that were sent in, most of which are by our board member, who is a civil engineer himself, have been sent to the different departments that were necessary, and he's reviewed the answers from the engineers,
And Mike is an engineer himself, so.
and he takes no exception to that information. So, it's a qualified person reading
Qualified person, and a qualified person.
information.
Yeah, triple,
And so,
Great review.
he says that DPW has submitted correspondence with 7 comments. Apparently apparently that's all set except for one, comment number 2 regarding vertical granite curbing. You talk about this all the time, but what's that about?
It's no longer a variance, I thought.
No, it's not a
We
variance.
changed that, so that's, yeah.
What happened is, every subdivision, and everybody used to tell us, don't give them the slope granite thing. What happens if you're plowing, which Mr. Salini can tell you because he plows, when you hit the granite, you break the plow, you break the granite. When it's slope granite, the plow rides up it. So the planning board always used to ask for that as a waiver, so we would tell Mr. Salini,
So even though they've asked for it, it's already
it's
approved anyway.
we made that permanent out of our records.
Yes, it's in our rules and.
Yeah. The original subdivision had to have that as a thing, because any subdivision coming to us, we wanted that in, and we were not going to approve the subdivision. Because the slope granted, the city just, it cost them a fortune, plus the plows don't do as good a job, because they're worried about breaking their plows.
And he says water and sewer have reviewed the plans and they're all set and it conforms to their regulations. Police and fire and health had no issues. So he wraps it up with a recommendation that he's saying that after reviewing the plans, he respectfully recommends that the waivers be granted, which we've already done, and the subdivision is approved as submitted. So I guess I have no more questions and leave us to where you want to go from here.
When Mike says the attached conditions, he's talking about the 2 waivers? Or
Yes.
the rest of the conditions that were all met?
And is there a formal vote that has this been done by the law department?
That's a draft.
We have to vote both ways, so if we want to vote.
So we've already,
Opposed. we have a vote.
this includes the motion to do 2 waivers. So this is the wording that they would want.
There, and there's a note that if we were to vote on the waivers, they needed to be voted individually,
Which is what we did.
Yep.
That's what we do.
We always do that. And then the actual vote would be the vote for the whole subdivision next.
Right, that's language, but that's not the vote, that's just the language. If we were going to.
So the attachments in the back here correspond to the answers on all these questions.
Questions?
Yeah, so it would be this
Yep,
one and this one done.
yeah, those are done.
So this is just the subdivision is
You
the
can,
actual last one.
you can write on that if you want to just cross them out.
No, this is the,
Commissioner Donovan could not attend tonight. He had other engagements, unfortunately. He has sent us great information, as always. I'm very happy to share
these
these
two
two
say waivers.
I tried to coordinate.
Yeah, okay. That's where I was going too fast.
Okay, I'll make a motion. The motion is to, unfortunately, I'm gonna read this, to approve the Kelly Lane Extension subdivision, applicant April Realty Trust, drawn by Petrowitz Land Development Engineering, dated December 12, 2018, revised through April 10, 2019, with the following conditions. And the conditions, I'm just going to say the general areas of the conditions. Drainage system conditions, sewer system, traffic conditions, general conditions which have to do with occupancy permits and things like that.
hours of operation.
Hours of operation.
These are the
And
general
with the
conditions.
following 2 waivers.
Yes,
Which-
these are the conditions we put on all our subdivisions.
So I've made that.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none. Judy, Andy, sorry.
Mr. Angeli?
Yes.
Mr. Upton?
Yes.
Mrs. Done?
Jamie, yes, I'll vote yes. Sorry
All in
about that.
favor, motion carries.
Gentlemen, thank you.
27 years of saying Judy.
You know?
Mr. Donovan doesn't have any comments for us today, since he's not here.
No other business.
So there's no other business. Little bit of subdivision stuff happening here and there, but not really that much happening in the city.
And I was talking to Steve, I haven't heard anything on Valley, it's almost been a year, you know.
Yeah, it seems to be dead.
Oh, you think so?
No, it just seems to be, it helps somewhat, but it's not important.
It's not in court, it's
No, it's
still in the,
DEP.
still in the DEP, which I can't believe, she came out a year ago. She did an inspection, she interviewed everybody, she took, information, additional supporting information for everybody's sides, and then nothing.
For this gentleman's sake, motion to adjourn?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.